be, because we're talking about a real plan, something that will add value for the next several years to the district. So I did increase the membership, people who I think will have great input and great value and add great value to the committee. But we also included students. If we're developing a plan that impacts our community or school, I thought it'd be wise to also include students in that plan. And there's some senior high representation. I did not include them on that actual list. They are in a sub list, but everyone else who I added from the community is on there. So Mr. Harley, really what I want to just make you aware of is at Monday's meeting on the 11th, I'll respectfully request the board to approve the additional members. And again, if you click on subletter A, it will take you to the comprehensive list, and you can see who's added. On the agenda itself, we'll include the new names, but we included some people like Laura Cunningham from the IU. She's their curriculum director. Casey Calburn, who's been a critical friend to the district in the area of our literacy initiatives. Dr. Joe Kovaleski, a professor at IUP. So we did increase the list that we thought would add value, and it's pretty self-explanatory. And at this time, Mr. Harley will take any questions that you or the committee may have.
Does the committee have any questions? Board members?
My only concern is that the committee is rather large, and
I bet Mike has a plan for that.
We do. We're going to do some small breakout groups, and we're going to put people in different type of areas of expertise that can add to the plan. So we're going to try to take a much larger comprehensive plan and put in some more manageable groups that make sense for us, that allow us to really operationalize this. So yeah, it is a concern, but we think we have a plan in order to handle this and mitigate that that concern to the best of our ability, sir.
Are we good?
Yeah.
We'll move on, Michael.
Okay, next I want to introduce Mr. Heinrich. Mr. Heinrich has been working with Dr. McMasters, Ms. Morelli, and Ms. Wright on getting some additional professional development in for our staff and for our teachers that falls in line with what our literacy vision is for the district. And at this time, I'll turn it over to them to give you an update, because basically there's an agreement that we have budget for through our professional development funds. But since it is an agreement, per se, a contract, we like at least to bring it to the board's attention so they know exactly what we're doing and the why behind it. Okay, with that, Mr. Heinrich.
Yes, sir. Thank you. For a long time now, we've been talking about the interventions that are necessary to catch up the 4 and 5 grades, where we see a tremendous need, but we don't really have a lot of capacity there. We really haven't focused our efforts. The 95% group is a program, an intervention program that focuses, it's basically the next level of phonics instruction, an extension of phonics instruction, appropriate for those levels. And Dr. McMasters, please correct me if I misspeak at any point here, because she knows a little bit more about it than I do. But effectively what this is what we're asking for is your permission to partner with 95% group to get our teachers the trainings and resources that they need to provide some of the interventions in multi-syllabic words. Yeah, easy for me to say, right? Multi-syllabic words in that in an intervention program at the 4-5. So I have attached the program agreement. There is a cost, but like Mr. Vukovic said, this is there's plenty of room in our budget for professional development. And so with your approval, we'll move forward and get these teachers the training and resources they need to start helping our kids learn to read better.
Hey, Rob.
Just to add, I was just going to add one thing, but I can wait for other questions.
I'd like Rob to explain who the 95% group is.
The 95% group is a company, like any other reading company, like a Pearson, or they provide content, and their specialty is literacy, and specifically grammar, phonics instruction. And so what they are going to do is, like I said, it's basically the extension of phonics instruction into the 4th and 5th grade level, and it dovetails very nicely into our plans at the junior high for struggling readers. So it's an intervention program for kids that aren't reading on level, who are struggling specifically with skills in phonics.
And it's also something that can be used for Tier 1 instruction for all. So for example, the multi-syllable word routines can be a 5-minute warm-up every day for everyone, but it can also be used as a 30-minute intervention for a deeper dive in instruction for some students. And then the vocabulary surge allows them to also, basically they're learning all the prefixes, the suffixes, how to pull words apart. So it can be used for all kids, but then also even further for intervention. So that's what makes it nice, is a common language for students across the grade level. And then, as Mr. Heinrich mentioned, as they would go to the junior high, that also would fall into that range of support as well.
Does the board members have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I do want to say that I am very happy to see that we're looking at the 4th and 5th graders, because they have been a concern of mine, because we've been focusing so much on K-3, and I understand the rationale, and we had to start where we did. But I'm very happy to see this. And Angela, I'm sure that this is evidence-based, correct? Yeah.
Yeah,
Just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, definitely. Dr. Susan Hall I believe she's the CEO and the developer, but 95% group is another gold standard. The nice thing of what they've done is they've been able to expand. They have a full program, which we don't need the full program because we have what we need for the K-3. But they've really done a nice job taking what they have to offer and making it cost effective. Because if you try to purchase the whole program, it's very pricey, but it is so beautifully done. And it also includes a lot of multi-sensory type techniques. So the kids are interacting with words and manipulating and moving word parts, which will help them as they grow and progress to more complex vocabulary that's needed for the junior high and the high school. And it also hits the spelling and the reading part. So it's not just one piece.
Mike, I see that this is $2,800. Is that an annual cost? Is that what it costs?
Rob and Angela, I'll defer to you. I don't believe it is. I think it's a one-time professional development and get them trained and certified. Is that correct?
That's
That
correct,
is
sir.
correct.
And
How much would the whole program cost, Tom?
I'm sorry?
How much would the whole program cost? Ms. McMaster said it's quite expensive. I'm just curious what it would actually cost.
Yeah, so for
The K through 3.
these two programs themselves were much more cost effective. So for example, the multi-syllable routine cards, I think it comes in one manual with an online office where materials are available for access for based on whatever the teachers need. But they've made that part of it much more cost effective, where I think it was $75 per teacher manual for the multi-syllabic word routines, and then also the vocabulary words, I think it's 75-ish. It's roughly about the same. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head. They have other more specific intervention kits and programs that are, and that's what I was referring to as far as being much more expensive. But these two are very nicely done that will be, as kids are coming forward, they're going to have a lot of knowledge of the different syllable types and things like that. So they don't need all of those other pieces and parts. But these two pieces will complement Tier 1 instruction, but also allow for more support for others. So these ones, and I can get more specific numbers, but that's ballpark what they were.
Angela, what I think what Julie's asking is if we went to K to 3, when you say it's a lot of money, is it $50,000 or $5,000?
So the 95% group is designed where they have intervention kits that support phonological awareness that then, so they're basically divided out by skill. So it really depends on what you're looking for and what you need, because each one comes with a set of manipulatives and materials. And I really didn't dive that deep into the full intervention to find out how much those pieces are, since we were really focused on Tier 1.
Okay.
So I can look into that if it's, if that's something that we want to look at even as we dive into 4-5 intervention, I can certainly take a look. But I just know that when you start to pull their programs together, it can become very pricey depending on, the size of the district, number of students, all of those kinds of things.
Well, for this discussion, we'll focus on the 4-5, but I think Julie's inviting you to take a dive into and make sure that there's no gaps. There's no, if we're missing something out of 3rd grade, then and let's at least know what we're not buying. So
Sure.
Look at that and bring it back to the committee.
I can do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on this?
No, sir. The agreement is attached. The plan is that we, with your permission, We'll move teachers trained on the 18th during the Act 80 day and ready to roll the program out shortly thereafter.
The 18th of January.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Make sure that in the motion for the board on that you put the $20 in. So, and when I don't hear any objections from the committee to recommend this to the board. I think we can move on, Mike.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next, I'd like to turn over to Mr. Heinrich, Mr. Lozanik, and Mr. McElhaney. Our ad hoc group, working group, overseeing athletics have done an amazing job. And as things have changed with regards to the governor's mandates and sports in general, we had to make some changes to our plan. So we thought it was prudent tonight to give the team some time to discuss the most recent changes to the plan, talk about a waiver regarding face coverings, and then an overall return to sports update. That way the community's aware of, the committee's aware of it, and then Mr. Heinrich and his team will communicate to the families. But with that said, Mr. Heinrich, I'll turn over to you and your team, and you can take it from here, sir.
Sir, thank you. As Mr. Vukovic said, we have made the subcommittee has been meeting pretty regularly, several times a month since the creation of the team to monitor the changes that are happening in the world of athletics and extracurriculars and to make sure that the health and safety plan that the board approved in August is being implemented with fidelity. And we're happy to report that we have done a pretty good job from the students all the way up with following the plan as it's written. I have to tip my cap to all the students and families and coaches who have been very, very vigilant, community members, board members, especially the committee, for monitoring this and continuing to adapt it as necessary to change with the times, because if there's one thing that is constant in this new world is change. So we have had success. We've had very few instances of problems with COVID related to extracurriculars or sports. And I think that is in no small part to the diligence of the coaches and the players and the staff involved. So thank you to everyone involved so far. As we move into winter sports, we kind of transition into indoor sports, and the transition in indoor sports elevates the risk. All of those sports, because they happen indoors in close contact, are considered high risk by our definitions of the PIA and the governing bodies that monitor and look over the sports. So we are going to release a reminder to families that if they choose to allow their students to participate in these sports, they are elevating the risk to these students and their families by doing so. So that's one thing that's going to come out. We're going to give them a list of suggestions on how they can mitigate the spread and how they can do everything they can to protect themselves, and remind them that they do choose to participate in these events. They are not mandatory, and they do so at their own risk. The other big change is the face coverings as we return to sports. In November, Governor and the Department of Health changed the face coverings order to expanded them and said that all people indoors in the proximity of other people must have the masks on at all times, and really restricted the loopholes. The only loophole there was is that if a doctor would say that this situation causes a medical concern, that you could be exempt. We reached out to our school doctor. Our school doctor did write such an exemption. She believes that it is more dangerous to wear the mask than to not wear the mask during strenuous physical activity. Students who have pre-existing conditions or breathing problems could experience a serious situation if a mask was worn during strenuous activity. So the recommendation is that our students, as student athletes, do not wear masks when involved in those types of strenuous activities or competitions. The issue here is that certain other schools that we play in competition that we compete against have doctors who have a differing opinion and are not writing an exemption for their students. We also have some students that want to wear a mask, and now we have recommendation to not have the mask on. So what we've done is we've worked with our solicitor to work up a waiver for anyone who wants to wear a mask, either because they feel it's important or if they are going into a competition with a school district that is requiring masks, and they want to participate, even though we don't have to wear masks, they will have to sign a waiver. This waiver will be presented by Mr. Luzanik to all the coaches this week so that all the participants have the opportunity to sign the waiver. And I know it seems kind of backwards that they're actually signing a waiver for permission to wear masks now. But with this recommendation, we want to make sure that, we are being very, very careful and making sure that everyone is safe, both from COVID and from other medical conditions and from liability that lies therein. So that waiver will be sent out this week. The masks will be not worn by our participants in our buildings at our events unless they have signed the waiver. They will be worn if we have waivers signed from our participants and we're traveling to a team that is requiring masks if the athletic directors have not arranged a different situation. I know that's a lot of information, so let me pause right there and ask if there's any questions concerning face coverings before I move on.
Rob, I'm going to ask on the waiver. My suspicion is we probably should have a waiver. The waiver should be either way. So so if I give my son permission to wear a mask or not wear a mask, I'm signing the same paperwork, and that way you're not missing something. Can that be incorporated in that waiver?
Oh, we can absolutely look into that for sure. But the recommendation from the doctor under the current situation with PIAA and the state basically exempts our students from that mask order. So I don't think we necessarily have to have the permission, but we can definitely ask Mr. Repack and see if he can, where we stand with that and what he thinks.
So the stance that the committee recommends is that when our athletes are in competition, they are not wearing a mask.
That's correct.
Based on the recommendation of the doctor.
That's correct.
She said.
And so
if you want to wear a mask, we need you to sign a waiver that you're choosing to wear a mask because the medical professional has indicated that they don't recommend that our athletes wear masks.
Okay, so my question is could you make the waiver with that statement on there that the ASID physician does not recommend wearing a mask? If you want your son to wear a mask, your child to wear a mask, please indicate it herein.
That's exactly what the waiver says, sir. Yes, sir.
And then another box, another line for I understand and accept. I'm thinking that when I would take a team to Ligonier to play ball, and I have 30 people, I should have 30 waivers, either with masks or without masks.
That's correct. And if they don't have a waiver on record, they're not allowed to travel with the team. If we're going to a place that's requiring masks and, I've said my child will not wear a mask and I'm not signing a waiver to allow it, then your student simply does not travel with the team to go play that team that's requiring the masks.
Wow.
So
yeah,
that's how.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure on the coach.
Okay. So, yeah.
And we're going to allow the people that compete against us on our home courts not to wear a mask.
That is correct, unless their doctor is requiring that masks are worn. Then they will wear masks and we will not.
Wow. It's going to be a really interesting season, isn't it?
It is. It's been a lot of work, absolutely. And Mr. Luzanik actually has been doing more work. He reached out to every single school that is on our schedule for basketball, and I don't know, the other sports as well, to figure out which schools are requiring masks, which ones are not requiring masks, and which ones are leaving it up to the participants. So we have he's been doing a lot of the legwork there to make sure that we're all on the same page. What PIAA has said is you have to work it out between the two schools or you have to cancel the event. So what we've done is just waiver in place. If enough of our students sign the waiver that they will wear the mask if they want to go play, in your, example, Ligonier, and Ligonier is requiring masks, then we'll go play Ligonier. If we don't have enough of our students sign a waiver that says they'll participate with masks, then we'll cancel that postpone that game to a time where the mask order is lifted.
When you cancel a game like that, does that go on a record as a loss or just a canceled game?
No, sir. The PIAA and WIPU have agreed that that is just a no contest. It never happened. So,
Okay.
so we'll be okay in most sports. There's still some concerns about wrestling. You had some questions. I'm gonna, in a minute, ask Mr. Lazanik to give us an update as far as he knows about wrestling. But there's some concerns with the wrestling, with the mask being worn, whether the mask actually becomes a hindrance, in the actual participation of the event, where they, just the mask's going to be rubbed off in a matter of seconds, I would imagine. So there's some concerns there, and I think the wrestling committee of the PIA was addressing that. So Mr. Lazanik give us an update there. But other than that, I think most of the other sports we should be okay.
Rob, the same question would be in basketball. If I'm wearing a mask and it comes off, what happens to play? I'm certain that is not in the high school rules. What happens? So some agreement some rule has to be put in place if we're wearing masks and they come off.
That's a very good point. Yeah, and I don't have that rule as of yet. So I don't know if Mr. Lazanik has an update on that.
Well, what I expect is for basketball, the game will continue unless it's until the next stoppage when the mask will be replaced, unless of course the official determines it to be a safety issue. For example, a mask comes off underneath the basket and there's kids down there and it could slip and fall, then the referee will stop the game in basketball. In wrestling, the mask, from what I understand, is going to be treated like the headgear, where if it comes off, the mask comes off in a wrestling match, and Highlands is the only school that we have wrestling against that is mandating mask wearing. The referee will stop the wrestling match to replace for the athlete to replace the mask, unless I'm not a wrestling person, but unless it's like in a pinning situation, where just like it is now for headgear, where if we're ready to pin the guy from Highlands, the referee will let that continue for the pin to go through, and he won't. So the opponent can't use it, to get out of a negative type of situation. I talked to Coach Donatella. He also heard that if the mask comes off a second time in a match, it'll be treated like injury time is now in a wrestling match.
Okay, so wrestling's addressed this pretty well then.
So wrestling has addressed it, correct?
Yeah. And basketball is a little more.
Basketball right now is a little iffy. If nothing comes out though, across the board, that will be discussed with the meeting, the pregame meeting with both coaches and the officials before every game.
It'd be treated like a home field rule.
Correct. Like a local rule, like a local ground rule. Correct.
Okay. Is the basketball games that we're playing, the basketball teams that we're playing, is anybody mandating masks?
Right now, Highland School District is. Hampton, we would have to wear a mask, boys and girls, when we go to Hampton. When they come to Indiana, they will be wearing a mask, but we do not have to wear a mask. So again, the athletic office, Scott and I will be contacting every school before every event, wrestling, basketball, and we will work it out. We'll make sure we know, just like we did in the fall, what the mask rule is and the attendance rules and so forth.
So if I have a medical exemption for not wearing a mask, but I'm playing in Hempfield, I have to wear a mask or not go.
Correct. You would have to sign the waiver to go to Hempfield. Like when we go to Highland, if I don't have enough guys that sign the waiver or their parents sign a waiver stating that they can wear a mask, we just simply will have to cancel the game.
Okay. It sounds like you guys have this pretty well in hand to figure it out sport by sport, game by game.
Yes, hey, it could change tomorrow, but as of right now, that's where it could change in a half hour.
Yeah, so it already changed today, I'm sure.
It did.
Yeah. Any questions from the board, committee? We're good. I would like to suggest that we schedule as much competition in the new gym as we can, and also that you talk with Mr. Trout about turning up the air exchanges in that room. He has the ability to do that in that room.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead, Mr. McElhinney.
Mr. Harley, that is correct. The air exchange system would provide the most beneficial circulation of air for any competitors. The one challenge we have is right now we are short a custodian and a housekeeper, I believe. And we have our custodians now doing their regular duties plus all the extra cleaning that they do. As of right now, it would be very difficult to take down that equipment and put it back up each night for practices or competition. So right now, that new gymnasium serves as our cafeteria area. We are poised and ready right now. We have, with our hybrid, we can accommodate that with social distancing. And should we go back to full attendance, we will also be able to accommodate that in the new gym too.
So you're using the old gym for the competitions currently then, Wade?
Yes, we can fit at 10%. Well, the committee's decided no home spectators at any event. But for basketball and wrestling, for example, in the old gym, Mr. McElhinney and I went through and actually physically counted seats. So I can put at 10%, 74 people in the old gym, 92 in the new gym. And we might have to do some work down with the junior high for 7th and 8th grade basketball because it's only 26. Now, when I say that, those aren't fans. That's 74 in the old gym. Like my basketball team will have a coaches and everything. I call it a traveling party of 25. So let's say both teams have 25. That's 50. We have 3 people at the scores table is 53. 3 officials is 56. Some videographers. So that Mr. Harley's how we're using our indoor capacity levels. But it's 92 for the new gym, 74 for the old gym. So outside of the air with no spectators, outside of the air issue, the old gym of 74 can handle both teams. Now, one thing that the committee will have to we'll talk about as the season wears on towards mid-February, if there are indeed playoff games, and our girls basketball team is very strong this year, and the higher seed will host basketball games as long as they can meet a minimum, a minimum capacity level. But that's something that I'd hate to see one of our teams be able to host a game and have to go on the road, but that's something that we'll have to take care of when the time comes. We don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. We got enough, right now.
So if I understand this right, the committee's recommending, the safety committee's recommending that we have no audience at this point.
Correct. And that's swimming, wrestling, basketball, that's across the board.
I'm sorry, say that again, Greg.
Swimming, wrestling, basketball, that's all of our winter sports. Well, rifle has no spectators.
Thank goodness.
Right.
For obvious reasons. And neither does well, we're going to struggle with indoor track, obviously, because they may just practice. They may not have the opportunity to have a meet. Coach Cochran and I have talked about the possibility, and if this comes, I'll bring it to the committee. But we've talked about the possibility that if we get a nice warm day in January, or fairly warm, maybe having an indoor track meet outside on the outdoor track, if that makes sense. But again, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I'll bring it to the committee when and if the time comes.
Wade, what do we have to do to get the new gym back?
To get the new gym back, we would need at least another custodian that could devote the time to take down the 100 and so tables and 200 and some chairs, and then put those back up for the next day.
Is that possible to do over with one guy, with one person?
I think if we had one person dedicated to it, brought him in or her in at the correct time, that we would have to be able to, we would be able to do that.
Would that have to happen every day?
Well, if we're going to use it for practices, yes. For competitions, most likely not. But given the schedule and the ability or the desire to put it in there, it would probably be close to every day.
So full time?
Yes.
do we have any idea what that would cost for the winter here?
I'm
Yeah.
not sure what salary and benefits be for that.
No, good question. If you're looking at a full-time employee, then it can, with salary and benefits, it can range anywhere between $30,000 to $50,000. Or we can look at overtime options, or we can just go with what we did in the fall with the smaller gym. So, and I may be speaking out of turn, Mr. Harley. I'm not exact on those numbers. I can get that by tomorrow, but that's just some ballpark figures for you.
I find it hard to believe, Mike, you don't keep this kind of stuff in the top of your head. Why don't you get those figures and bring them to the board? And maybe as at least a temporary hire for the winter season. That gym would be a better venue for all these things.
My only concern is we're already potentially facing a staffing shortage, depending on how long the pandemic goes and what the health of our staff looks like. And I would hate for us to commit to hiring someone just for that purpose when we in fact may need them in one of our academic buildings.
That's true, but if we had a number and a duration, we could certainly talk about it.
Could we have options? So what overtime might look like?
Yeah, that's all I'm asking for.
We can put those numbers together and get them out to you for sure.
Okay. Is the committee okay with that?
And Mr. Harley, to reiterate, I think what we're saying at this point, we're going to stay the course. We're going to get those numbers, give the board options, and then the board will make an informed decision. But until then, we're going to run the play that the committee developed. Correct, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. I just know how hard it is to get practice space and time in gyms in the winter time here. So I think we need to at least have some information to make a decision or not on that.
Okay.
Tom,
Yes, sir.
just I want to go back and ask Greg for clarification on this. I understand you said there are no spectators at the wrestling or the basketball or the other winter sports. Does that include the parents, or what? If it does, what accommodations, video, whatever, have we made to try to ease that burden?
That does, Mr. Short, that does include the parent. I've been in touch multiple times, and the last time this morning with all of our coaches. Right now, like the basketball boosters, we're handling it basically how we did in the fall for events. The basketball boosters have plans in place to buy the equipment to live stream the home basketball games and away games if necessary on our school's Facebook page. Same with swimming. Wrestling, I understand from the wrestling coaches, they've done that now for a couple years. So, and we're down to the basketball boosters are working on a plan to get at minimum the home junior high 7th and 8th grade basketball games and 9th grade also live stream. So, yes, Mr. Short, yes, it includes the band, includes the parents, because we just wouldn't have space for them anyway. With the limitations that we have, maybe we would in the new gym, but we are making plans to get every game on live stream. For example, a week from tonight, our basketball team goes to West Shamokin. They are putting their games on the NFS network, but I understand there's a subscription cost for our parents to watch the game on that. So I'm going to try my darndest to have the boosters. We're going to have someone down there to live stream it back for our parents to watch, parents and fans and whoever.
Okay, Greg, thank you. That's one of my concerns is that, this can be just as impactful to parents not being able to, support their students and their student athletes as well. So, but thank you. Look, it sounds like you guys have at least a plan. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
This is Randy. If I can make a comment on the live streaming, other venues that are contracting with another company, regardless of whether it's a paid subscription or not, you may want to check on the legality of someone else in the stands broadcasting the exact same game for free. We probably won't be able to do that. Does that make sense?
Are you saying if someone else is using NFS to broadcast, we won't be able to broadcast it?
We will not be able to rebroadcast the same game for free. That is correct. That's actually happened before with some of the sports that my kids were in. Specifically, my son played hockey, and when we played at that level, Hockey TV and other venues, we were not allowed to live stream it to our parents for free if they were already covering the game.
So our parents may have to pay the subscription to NFS to watch their kids compete at other districts.
I'm just saying we need to check on that because I don't know 100%, but there is a chance that could happen. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and it's
what that cost is.
Say again, Tamara.
Do we know what that cost is?
the subscription.
I do know there's a cost for the entire season, and there's also a per game cost. I do not know tonight what the per game cost is. This news with the NFHS is news to me. I know in the playoffs, the Trib has sole rights. I didn't know that NFS had sole rights to those individual schools for regular season games. But I will contact the athletic director down at West Shamokin and see what he can tell me.
That sounds good. Now, when we say we don't have any audience, we will have a radio broadcast if they choose to come.
Yes, sir. We're going to allow.
I guess we never did talk about the winter sports and media at the committee, but without fans, my opinion is, without spectators and parents, the media is more important than ever.
We made arrangements.
Hold on, Greg. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, media will be pre-approved. The media will be allowed in as long as we are under the capacity limits. So one of the concerns about the old gym is with only 74 total people allowed in during an event, as long as Mr. Lozanik said, the traveling team number is still low enough that we can allow the radio, television people in, they'll be allowed in. If we would be in a situation where allowing those people in would put us over the limit, then obviously we won't be allowed to let them in. If we are in a situation where we can't open the new gym, that will alleviate that concern, but it's still going to present us with a problem with the number of parents we have allowed in. At most, I think we're going to have about 20 spots for parents, 25, and then we're going to be in a situation where how do we decide who gets those tickets? We can definitely solve that problem when we get there, and as the restrictions for these events are lifted, the committee, like I said, we meet, probably every other week. We will then change the spectator rules to mirror what's going on with the capacity limits.
I'm certainly okay. We're starting out slow with no audience. Let's see what the countywide numbers do. Let's see what the hospitalization looks like. We have a lot of other problems to deal with rather than causing things. So I'm very comfortable with starting out with no audience. Look at it in a couple of weeks, and maybe make a different decision.
So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page and we're all clear that this isn't an arbitrary decision that any group is making. We're trying to stick to the occupancy limits that we've been presented with and not create a complete administrative nightmare if, let's say, within those limits, we could have 2 spectators. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be the one to decide which 2 people that's going to be. So we're really trying to look at making sure that our athletes can have their season and participate in their sport, which all along has been the primary thing that we've wanted for our students, and then stay within the guidelines that we've been dealt.
Yes, ma'am. I mean, I think we have to look at it as, like Mr. Harley said, we got to be happy with the start. Number one, our kids are still able to participate. There's some problems and some, frustrations are going to happen about masks and about, spectators, but we're going to work through it like we have. Like I said, the subcommittee's done a great job thus far, making sure that these opportunities still exist for our families and our kids, and we'll continue to do that and adjust as the limitations adjust. And we'll do everything we can to get as many of our parents and kids into these events as possible when it's permitted. But as Ms. Lowry said, this really has come down from the state, and the limitations make it very hard to get any fans in. And it's just safer if we, at this point, and better for everybody if we just don't allow fans at all for now, for the time being. Ms. Brode, you have your hand up?
Yes, I just wanted to say, you know, we really do need to keep in mind that we want the kids to be able to play their sports, but the first consideration is safety. And if we have to start doing back bends and flips and all kinds of things to get a bigger gym or to be able to have more people in there, it's all going to be a moot point if we get shut down anyhow. If we end up closing because of numbers, there will be no sports. So we need to look at what we want first is safety, and what we want second is the students to be able to play. And anything beyond that it's just, you know, cherry on top. So I urge everybody to be safe and be patient. Thank you.
Thank you. I just looked up the NFS costs. That subscription for families is $70 for the year or $11 a month. There is a equipment fee for each venue for the school. So we'd have to pay for the camera and the supplemental equipment to have them set up in the gym. And then each family that wanted to subscribe would either have to pay $11 a month to watch these games or $70 a year. And like Randy O'Neill brought up, it's something that they may have to pay if they want to watch road games anyway. So, but we will make sure that all home games are streamed and as many away games as we can are streamed to our families so that they get a chance to watch whenever they can.
And when you say streaming, that's through our website. Is that correct?
That'll be either through our website or the athletic website. Correct, Mr. Lozanik?
Yeah, the school's Facebook page is what we can use.
Okay, so that's equipment and streaming that we control.
Correct.
Like the basketball boosters are going to buy an extra iPad for the boys team, the girls team, and the junior high teams. And part of our 74, we'll have a videographer in there to do the actual streaming for the events.
And we'll communicate that to the families and ahead of each game where the link is to view the games.
Yes. And I always make just on our school's Facebook page. I've always, during football season, I've made the opponents. I give them our website, and so their community can watch the game as well.
Tom?
Yes, sir.
Tom, this is Waller. I have a kind of a logistical question for Wade and or Mike. So right now you've got the new gym, which is bigger, set up with tables for cafeterias. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Schroth.
Okay. And so you need that extra capacity to over the smaller gym, the older gym, in order to meet the number of social distancing and those logistical requirements. Is that correct?
That is correct, but also correct is the fact that number of students are eating in a large space without their mask on. We need to have that air circulation to its maximum.
Okay, because the question I was going to ask was whether or not you'd set up the old gym with a number of tables, more or less permanently, and then just put the additional 10 or 15 tables up in the new gym to have sufficient capacity, and maybe you could do it with the current staff to simply remove those tables to allow the competition to go on in the new gym.
Logistically, I think that's a viable idea, but the opportunity to have that number of students in the gymnasium eating with the air exchange is what's very important.
Yeah, the mechanical system in the new gym is much better.
Yeah, I understand that, Tom, and that's why I was trying to pick my way through this to find out where the glitch in this system is.
Anything else? Chris?
The only
Committee?
other change to the athletic plan is a minor one, which is water bottles. All participants in the winter sports will be required to bring their own water bottle that is labeled with their name, so there's clear which water bottle belongs to whom, and so that there's no cross-contamination. Other than that, any changes that happen to the original health and safety plan are minor and just to fall in line with the changes that have come down from the state. So that's really the only big changes. The plan is, we're putting the plan forward just as for the board's approval as a whole, just to make everyone aware of it. The board did empower the subcommittee to make small changes, which they've done. But as we transitioned into the winter sports, we just wanted to bring the big changes up to everyone and have the board have the ability to once again confirm that they agree with what's going on here. Any other committee members feel I missed anything or left anything out?
Nope, I think you covered it.
Okay, so we're going to open up winter sports, no fans, get the games underway. Greg is going to have a full-time job figuring out how the mask situation is going to work, and we'll feel our way through. And I agree with Cinda. It's really good to go slow right now.
Yes, sir.
Can we move on?
Yes, sir. Under non-agenda items, it's just a couple things we want to debrief the public and the board on and committee itself on with regards to literacy programming update. First and foremost, we created a literacy newsletter led by Dr. McMasters and her team for the sake of communicating with their families about what we're doing here in Indiana Area School District and what that change in literacy instruction looks like. After all, we know there's two things people hate: change in the way things are. And we also understand what happens when there's fear and people don't understand why the changes are necessary. What happens as a result of these changes? Ignorance can grow, or hatred, or confusion, or dysfunctions can grow. So what we want to do is really come out front and say, look, this is what we're doing. This is why we're making a change. And here's the reasoning and rationale behind it. That's not us just sitting in our offices thinking, hey, this would be a great idea. It's based on years of evidence, based on years of best practices. And it's not that anyone's broken or anyone did anything wrong. It's about us proving together and getting better together, aligned with high expectations, a huge amount of systems of support for our kids, and most importantly, aligned to the evidence, right? Aligned to best practices. So we're making some great changes. We're making some great progress. We have some bumps along the way like anything else, but we wanted to over-communicate to our families about the reason why we're doing what we're doing. So what we did was we put it on our website, put it on social media and some other places, and what happened was it really caught some fire to be recognized by not only some state leaders, but also people across the country recognizing this effort and this commitment to making sure all means all, that kids are reading, that we're following the science, we're following the evidence, and following research. And all I'm really bringing up for is to give credit to all those people. And not only starts with Dr. McMasters, Mr. Heinrich, April Morelli, Shell, right, but also includes all the teachers who came into saying, look, I don't understand why we're making the shift, but let me believe in it, let me learn more about it, and give me time to learn and adapt. And we're going to put the best interest of kids first. And that's exactly what we're doing. And this literacy newsletter really just is starting to really take off down and make sure people understand the why behind what we're doing. And we want to just really call that out and applaud you as the board for making that decision to say, hey, it's time for a change. It's time to, increase some programming and looking exactly what we're doing and over communicate. Now, with that said, we think we owe it to everyone here a little bit of a programming update about how all these things we're doing are meshed and intertwined together. For example, we're Angela McMasters talk about some of the work we're doing, our MTS platform and literacy work, but also we have Miss Casey Howard on the call. It says, going to really show you the return we made with them through our partnership, supports our literacy initiative. And the point is, these are all connected, interwoven systems that we're trying to build here. And the first thing we did was create awareness, create a why, and now we're really starting to see a return on investment. Nowhere near where we could be, but we thought it was at this point to really give an eye at that. I'll turn it over to Dr. McMasters and her, and they can debrief the board.
Yeah, and I just want to also echo what Mr. Vukovic said. The literacy newsletter that Dr. McMasters and the MTSS team put together and published for our families caught instant regional, state, and national attention. And we're getting calls and being contacted by people from across the country who just are thrilled with what we're doing and want to partner with us and tap into what we're doing. And it's reflective of your leadership and your giving us the ability to do what's best for kids. So kudos to everybody. Randy, if you give me the sharing or the presenting permissions, I will present Dr. McMaster's presentation.
It should be turned on. You should be able to see your presenting button. Do you see it?
Got it.
As Mr. Heinrich showed up the presentation, look, again, I want to make sure we're very clear on a couple things. One, I don't want anyone in the public or in this committee to think that anything that the teachers are doing was wrong or incorrect. We can always get better. We had to change the philosophy. We wanted to make sure we're focused on evidence and research. Two, change takes time, and this is 2 years, 3 years now, year number 3 in the making. So we're doing some great work. And most importantly, it's again, reflection of your great work and your great effort by really standing up and making a change and believing in what the science and research says. Mr. Heinrich?
Yes, sir. I'll turn it over to Dr. McMasters.
All right. So we basically just wanted to give you an overview and an update based on middle or beginning of the year data with our middle of the year screenings coming up, just so you could have a good understanding of how we've been able to really work with our reading specialists, even though they're serving in dual capacities right now, to meet the needs of our students. So if you could go ahead to the next slide, please. So I wanted to hit on a few different things. An overview of the tiers of support, how we've been using a problem-solving focus to look at data, how we've actionized the data, and then lastly, sharing some of the class-wide and individual interventions and sharing with you all Mrs. Coburn's work with phonological awareness and some really remarkable results that they've seen in their team. So at the end of each of these little segments, I'll do a pausing point. So if you have any questions, but also feel free to interrupt. All right, so if you look at our triangle, we've talked about this a long time ago, I feel, so that's why I just wanted to revisit it quickly. Our triangle represents all of our students. So within our student population, somewhere within that triangle, they fall. If you could click, this is animated. Okay, so tier 1, we know is high quality core instruction for all of our kids. And what the research shows us is that with that high quality instruction, 80% of our students should be able to meet proficient levels of, reading acquisition. There will be then about 15% of our students who need some more instruction, which could be just some intensification of instruction within the classroom or some supplemental intervention. And then we would have a few students, about 3 to 5%, who need more intensive intervention and a greater focus. And basically what you're doing would be layering on supports for students. So it's not saying, well, this student only gets tier 2 instruction. If a student is in tier 2, they're receiving regular and general core instruction and then some more. And so it just intensifies in time, duration, and intensity. And what I wanted to point out is how we've been focusing on what we call the space between. So the space between is this small area between tier 1 and tier 2, where we know that some students from March to the end of the school year really engaged in the learning activities and exercises our teachers set forth. We had some students who didn't engage, or some students who really just need face-to-face instruction. And so we know that our beginning of the year data doesn't have us where we want to be. We didn't have a huge slide either. So what we really have to be cautious about is not overwhelming our system with a strict focus on those who need intervention. So we've been looking at grade level data as well as class-wide data, and then our reading specialists who've been so gracious to also look at what are the intervention needs of our students. So we've been working as hard as possible to meet those intensive needs of some of our students. So we'll talk about that, but I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, again, that part in between where we're just trying to not overwhelm our system by intervening with everyone, because right now, with the pandemic, we probably have a lot of false negatives, meaning once those kids have instruction, they're going to move right along, because the benchmark cut scores don't change because of the pandemic. They're based on their way that they were normed. So within our MTSS structure, these are the teams that are a part of looking at the data. So we have the district MTSS leadership team, which will also include our teacher leaders. And basically that's looking at the bird's eye view of, you know, where are we headed? What are the things that we need right now? Planning for professional development, all of those kinds of things. Then we have our building MTSS core team, which would be the building principal, the school psychologist, one of the MTSS facilitators, reading specialists, speech clinicians, anyone who has a vested interest and understanding of what are the supports that our teachers need, what kind of coaching, what kind of resources. And it's been interesting, even as we've had grade level meetings, to discover some of the different resources and interventions that some teachers are trained in and also have on hand. So your building team really helps your grade level teams keep moving forward. So following up to grade level meetings, what are the kinds of resources that we have to circle back to make sure our teachers are supported? And then from there, we would have more targeted problem solving meetings that would be for our students falling in tier 2 or tier 3. And really, once you get into more of the targeted and intensive, those would be the times when we need to communicate with parents across the board, but really parents become a part of that problem solving process as we get to more of the targeted and intensive level meetings for individual students. So across all of the tiers, all of our decisions are based in a problem solving framework. So we can apply this consistently to our system. So what does the health of our system look like? Is there a specific focus area that we need to have? Are there specific needs for small groups of students? Or even if we're looking at individual students, what is the specific focus area? What data and information do we have? And then based on what that's telling us, what is our plan? And then once the plan is implemented, we evaluate and revise based on students' progress.
Dr. McMasters, if you could, for sake of clarity on my end, I think this is pretty remarkable that I think maybe went over a little quickly. You made a comment, look, we may not have gotten all the gains we wanted, but the fact that we did prevent the learning loss. So talk about how remarkable that is in the middle of a shutdown, 3 months and no school, and what's going on with the pandemic. I think the community needs to understand the importance of that. So yeah, we may not be where we want to be, but the fact that we mitigated the impact and potential loss of learning with the use of shutdown, I think is itself remarkable. But I don't want him to speak. I want you to clarify those comments and make sure I'm speaking accurately.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think about it, March until near end of August. So it was about 6 months of time that we lost with our students. And when I say lost, I know that our teachers provided, quality experiences for kids while they were online, but that is no one was prepared for that. It's like we're here March 13th and then all of a sudden we're not. And a lot of adapting had to happen on the part of teachers and parents. And it definitely is not the same as being in person. Also on top of that was how much students engaged. So when they were talking, we attended so many different webinars, and April and Shelley are on our call too. So feel free to chime in if you guys want to add to this. But there were so many calls that we were a part of that we talk about what they were referring to as unfinished learning. So unfinished learning that didn't get to happen because of the closure. But then also we always talk about the summer slide. So you usually anticipate a little bit of that to happen over the summer. So essentially it was like a double whammy, which could have been our case. And what you'll see when we get forward to looking at how we've been approaching the data and actionizing the data is that we didn't lose ground in any of the grade levels. And that was beginning of the year. So I'm really excited to see the middle of year data because our teachers have been working so hard with the resources that we've had that have been different this year, with reading specialists being synchronous teachers. And just how, I don't want to say that I was shocked because I know, but I kind of was like, I think all of us really weren't sure what to expect. So I think that there's a lot of promise in the fact that our students didn't have substantial slide. And then I also think there's a lot of promise in everything that we've adopted, as well as how the data teams have been running. And in using this approach, it has allowed us to be very focused on the overall needs of groups of our students by whole grade level, but then with the eyes of our reading specialists and the speech clinicians to really also be able to help pinpoint very specific needs of small group and individual groups of students. I just really think that it's very promising for what our future will hold when all of this gets to return to normal. So if we can do this in the middle of a pandemic, I just can't wait to see what happens next.
Mike, or may I just say that I think that's great, because I think when you get into specific problems with reading, there can be so many. And the faster you can pinpoint it, it could be an auditory problem, it could be a speech problem, it could be a binocular problem with the eyes. And sometimes the strangest remedies can help readers. You know, I know my son was he was helped by just having a yellow ruler, a special ruler that we bought that really helped focus his eyes, but it wasn't really a focused problem. But if you can troubleshoot that quickly and not take months and months to figure out the problem, then I think that's terrific.
And you'll see a few slides down the road, we talk about not reinventing the wheel. There are so many easy to implement evidence-based practices that we can employ quickly. So we've really tried to make that the focus of our coaching, as well as sharing resources with principals to share with their teachers, or just to have conversations with teachers at grade level meetings. So I feel like this focus has also allowed us to not get caught in the weeds, where we start having conversations about, that are all over the place. So we've really been able to keep our focus by just saying, what is the scale area we want to target? What is our goal? Now, how can we get there? So if we see this group of students is low in phonological awareness, and what else do we need to add? And how can we get our kindergarten students to start blending and segmenting words and being able to read consonant, vowel, consonant words and sight words and those kinds of things. So it's been really great conversation with the teams that we've met with, just moving us forward and looking at, I have in there, and I know it's the acronyms. I'm sorry, Mr. Harley, because I think, or many of you with acronyms, but under number 3, I list ICE, and that talks about instruction, curriculum, and environment. So we really look at what do we know about the instruction that we provide and how we provide it. So number of repetitions, increasing intensity, curriculum and programs, and also the environment. And we have all of those really, I think we have a really good handle on all of those, especially with having school-wide across the district and things like that. So I think we've seen a lot of positives in those areas. So it's kind of been cool for me to see it all come together. Sorry, Mike, I think you were gonna.
Yeah, I was jumping in, Angela.
Oh, sorry.
I'd like to highlight you had a 6-month opportunity for a 6-month slide over summer, and you're saying that you pretty much held the line, which is that is truly remarkable. If you only have a 3-month vacation, life is excellent.
And you'll see that when we go forward here. I did a bird's eye view of district data to show you an example of how we've been using it with grade levels and with buildings too.
And Dr. McMasters, would you agree, before we move on, I think what 2 takeaways the committee should really think about and reflect upon is, one, when you talk about equity and you talk about multi-tiered systems of support, this really truly puts the onus on the system and not the child, right? So many times we say, not these kids, or they can't read, or he can't read, or she can't read. Well, what an MTSS system really does is put equity at the heart of it and makes sure the system meets the kids where they're at, rather than the kid adapting to the system. So when you talk about the idea of equity, and you ask me about equity, this really puts equity beyond just words. It actually puts it in practice. So I think that's important from a board perspective to understand when you talk about equity and making sure all means all, making sure we're giving kids the access and resources they need. A multi, tiered system of support actually does that. It places equity at the heart of it. And then second of all, I don't want to bring up bad, emotions from previous board meetings, but when we talk about personalized learning, name for me a better, more personalized learning system than a multi-tiered system of support, where again, the systems of support are designed and dedicated to meet the kids, their needs, and where they're at. So I want you to really think about how what we're doing at the heart of what we're doing is equity, providing every kid a platform to be successful, providing the timely interventions and supports to their best ability to make sure they're successful. So it's not just good intentions. It's a well-planned system that we're building somewhat in flight, but nonetheless, we're building. Would you agree with that, Dr. McMasters, or did I mistake you?
Yeah, no. And I just feel like, as ironic as it sounds, given the situation that we're in, I feel like it started to gel just, again, in conversations that we've been having around coaching and check-ins and the needs of the teams. So if you want to advance us to the next slide. Okay, so first of all, this is not our data. Rob asked me if that was our data. He's like, it is not. I just like graphics. So
I was like, what is that? Which is that green data? It's terrible.
Like, what does this represent? Nothing. It's just a picture of data being charted. So, so what does it mean and where do we go from here? So one thing that's the heart of everything that I know I do, as far as when I look at data, when I look at individual student profiles, or when I look at groups of student profiles, is Scarborough's reading rope. So we know that all of these strands come together for proficient reading, and your bottom strands are those foundational skills, and your top strands are those that continue to grow through your language comprehension. And when we're doing our universal screening or checking the overall health of our system, the next slide will show you a snapshot of what that looks like. And what I wanted to highlight, and which I wish I was better at, is being able to show you how all of these pretty much assess those different strands of our system. And so this isn't the be all end all, but it really does tell us where do we need to dig deeper and what do we need to do to get better. And so what this slide is showing you is, first of all, across the top, you see the little basic to complex skill progression. So right below that, where it says phonological awareness, phonics, oral reading fluency, and comprehension, you're looking at a basic to complex skill progression. So by the time students are in 4th and 5th grade, that's where we're really looking more towards the oral reading fluency and the comprehension pieces. And this is the district's bird's eye view. And so each building is working on, different goals and things like that based on what their data show. But what I wanted to highlight, first of all, our kindergartners coming in as a whole started the year at 68% at or above. And then what I wanted to highlight for the others, where you see under reading composite, you see 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, and then there's a percentage, and then there is a in parentheses there, you can see beginning of the year 1920. So what that's showing you is those 1st grade students right now started the beginning of this year at 56% at or above. When they came to us in kindergarten at the beginning of the year, they started at 54% at or above. So basically what I'm highlighting is when they started, we've still been able to, kind of like Mr. Harley said, hold the line, and especially for that 2nd grade group that in 1st grade had foundation integrity and then their specific win time. They started beginning of the year in 1st grade at 43%, and then this year coming into 2nd grade at 64%. So you're able to see that we're still moving along, but this is how we've been able to use the data from kindergarten through 5th grade. And then when we're meeting with grade level teams, we can break this out by classroom. So if there's specific classroom needs that we have to address, we're able to do that. Or if there's grade level needs that we need to address, we're able to do that. And furthermore, dive into group of students' needs for those that, are in the yellow or the red range. any questions on this part or anything else? Okay. So trends identified in the beginning of the year data. So basically, we know that it checks the overall health of our system. So we continue to grow and improve. And for some classes, there were a lot of needs, some grade levels, different needs. So in certain cases, we looked toward a class-wide intervention. And we do have intervention groups that were identified. However, we're not servicing all of our students in yellow. If you look at trying to service 40 or 45% of a grade level, we just don't have the capacity to do that. And when you have universal screening data that lands where it does, it really points you more towards your tier 1 and what you need to do to improve your tier 1 instruction. So the next slide will show you basically where we're at and what we've been able to do so far. And I really sing the praises of Val Birch and Carrie Kinter and Meg Vallis. They are able, and the literacy GAs, they are able to see 84 students at Ben Franklin and 85 students at East Pike for small group intervention. And that is from kindergarten to 3rd grade. So that was one tidbit, which I think is really cool since we started the year being a little unsure as to what that could look like. So in then the results of where our grade level meetings have gone, in kindergarten, we're really working on continuous sound blending and helping students transition from just hearing the sounds to sounds representing letters and using sound boxes for that, with a continued emphasis on phonological awareness and oral language. In grades 1 to 3, we've been working with patent consultants who've been sharing us resources and coaching tips on decodable text routines to help build automaticity and fluency with phonics patterns. I already covered a little bit about K to 3, which are more specific skill groups, as well as East Pike with the dyslexia pilot. They do have groups of students using the Apple intervention. And then in grades 4 and 5, what the data really showed us is that need for the 95% group materials to really beef up that phonics instruction, which is the area that was substantially lacking based on, the results of their data. And then lastly, just K to 5, the 3 of us providing ongoing support and coaching for our teachers and visiting classrooms and attending grade level meetings and just really trying to help us all move forward in our knowledge. Any questions on that section before I move on to how we've determined some of these strategies and interventions? Okay. So you can go ahead then, Mr. Heinrich, please. All right, so this was back to the not reinventing the wheel. So we've really been trying to, and I use medical analogies a lot, but if you go to the doctor and they know that this specific medication is going to be the best treatment for bronchitis, they're not going to just start pulling things off the shelf and just being willy-nilly about it. They're going to give you the best treatment. So really that's what we've been looking towards. What are those evidence-based strategies that our teachers are able to use that doesn't cause them to reinvent the wheel? And we know that they're working really hard with what they have in front of them. So what other strategies and tips and techniques can we offer them? Because the part that's really important to remember is that we want to deliver interventions with integrity and fidelity to make sure that they're used as they were researched to be used. And then also making sure that they were used for a sufficient period of time so that we can look at how well a student responds to a strategy that's employed. And the reason that that's so important is, especially if we're looking for maybe an evaluation for special education is really helpful for kids who need it. However, if we misidentify students who really just needed more opportunities to practice and respond and those kinds of things, if it's not the best, if they don't meet those eligibility criteria and end up being misidentified, then it can have detrimental effects for them too, which is why this part is so important. So if you could go to the next slide, please. This was animated, so you can just kind of click through these, Mr. Heinrich. So what I wanted to share with you is that's good. One of the strategies and tools that we've been using as we've had conversations with teachers or looking at grade level data is looking at the different phases of learning, which are in blue. So when you're first acquiring a skill, that's your first time you've ever been exposed to it. And then that's why that explicit instruction is so important. Then once you become accurate, but need to build your speed with which you're doing it, moves to fluency. Then from there, being able to generalize it to other situations. And then lastly, it's just so automatic, you can just do it. So you think about the first time you drive a car and you're just acquiring the skill, you have to be really thoughtful of everything, where your foot is, starting the car, putting it in drive, all of those things that now you get in the car and you can just pretty much drive anybody's car, maybe outside of adjusting the seat. So that's how you would go from acquisition to adaptation. But these strategies that are listed underneath, and this is not an exhaustive list. We have quite an extensive summary of different strategies that we can pull from. But these are just some of those evidence-based strategies that we know are supported by research to help students across these phases. Next, there we go. So I didn't go too in depth with the interventions that are being used, but I really feel like it's important for Mrs. Coburn to be able to share the results of the intervention that she's been providing through our speech and language partnership. It's been remarkable to see the results, and I will turn it over to her so that I don't steal her thunder.
I have to apologize because I just lost my internet connection, so I hope you can hear me.
That's okay, you're good. Yep, we can hear you.
All right, so I'm excited to share the data, and I missed your last sentence, but I think you were alluding to that perhaps when I rejoined. This is our first full semester providing services through this partnership. And so just to start, I'm going to briefly overview what the services looked like. So Mr. Heinrich, if you could switch to the next slide, please. We provided services at Ben Franklin Elementary to children in kindergarten, first and second grades. And these services were provided by 4 graduate student clinicians in the speech language pathology department at IUP. They were under my supervision. We provided services for both articulation and phonological awareness. However, the majority of the services we provided were for phonological awareness, where we serviced a total of 60 students. We were able to collect data at pre and post test on 10 of these students. The reason why there is a discrepancy between the total number of students served and the students for which we have pre and post test data was due to the amount of time the students were in the program. Some were referred after the Acadience assessments that happened a little later in the school year, so they were only in the program for a handful of weeks, and it wasn't enough time to give them the post-test assessments. So unfortunately, I can only report on 10 students. When we resume our services in the spring, and by spring, I mean at the end of January, it's the IUP spring semester, that is, we will collect data on the remaining students once they have been in the program for approximately 6 weeks total. The services that, again, targeted phonological awareness that Angela spoke of as being a necessary foundational skill for literacy, those services were provided in individual or small groups, with the small groups not exceeding 3 students. Those services happened 3 times a week for 10 minutes. Each time, the session lasted 10 minutes, which doesn't sound like a lot, but because they were individual and small groups, the students were able to get in a high number of practice trials during that time. And what was nice is those trials were individualized to meet their specific needs. Students were identified for services based on either a teacher referral or, again, their performance on the Acadience screening that the district does on all students. Most of the services were provided using, I don't know, some of you might be familiar with David Kilpatrick's 1-minute drills that are available in his book, Equipped for Reading Success, which is an evidence-based intervention for phonological awareness. Some students needed some modifications just based on their individual needs, but the majority of students were serviced in this way. And so now to share the data. So Mr. Heinrich, if you could switch to the next slide. We administered the phonological awareness screening test, which a lot of people refer to as the PAST. And if you look at the bottom of the chart, you'll see that we had 5 kindergartners for which we have data, 4 first graders, and 1 second grader for which we had data. A lot of the second graders were referred after the Acadians assessment, so that's why we only have 1 who was in the program long enough for the pre and post test. The blue is their pre-test data. This is for their total correct responses on the assessment. The orange is their post-test data. So as you can see, in each case, they've made significant improvement. And Mr. Heinrich, if you could switch to the next slide. This is their automatic score. The PAST looks at both responses that are correct, and then it also looks at the responses that are automatic. So to develop a proficient reader, we need phonological awareness skills to be both correct and automatic. This data is, in my opinion, just as exciting as the last, if not more exciting. If you look again, the blue is the pre-test data and the orange is the post-test data. Any questions?
Casey, will you have more than a bigger number as we go forward of students?
A number of students served, or for which to share data?
The number of data points.
Absolutely. We will collect that data when they have been in the program for approximately 6 weeks. So when we resume services at the end of January, those services will resume. So, depending on when they were enrolled in the program, that will dictate when we do the post-test data.
Yes.
And by post-test, I'm calling it post-test because it was the end of the fall semester. However, really at that point, it would be more of a progress monitoring because it wouldn't necessarily be the culmination of the program. And that, these same students are going to continue in the program in the spring semester.
Okay. Any questions from the board or the committee? Come on, Tamara.
So Casey, I do have a question. So the students that you, first of all, the data is super exciting. It's amazing the amount of progress that was made in that short amount of time with those short intent sessions. Will you provide additional progress monitoring for these 10 students in another 6 weeks? So will we see their growth differentiated from the other students?
Absolutely. Yes. And, potentially sooner if we feel like a child is ready to exit the program, we could administer that sooner. And some of the students, who are reaching the skill level where we would want them to be would potentially receive that even sooner than that.
And the data that you just presented, did that include students who were served in groups and individually? And did you see a difference in the amount of progress made?
No, the data, and I don't have the breakdown in the presentation, but I can provide that data. I have it compiled in a separate, or I can email it to you to show you specifically which students were serviced in a group and which were those who were serviced individually. And we saw just as much progress with those who were serviced in the small group as we did with students who were serviced individually.
That's great to know. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
I just want to thank Mrs. Coburn for all of her work and service to our students. It's outstanding. It is exciting is the best word I think someone used when you see this result. It's just proof again that the approach we're taking is going to help kids, and it's so student centered. And we thank her and her entire team of students for the work they've done. Look forward to continuing the partnership.
I agree. That short of an intervention time to see that dramatic of a result. When I clicked that open, I think my jaw hit the desk because it was so impressive. So I'm really excited to see it moving forward for sure.
Casey, are we employing all your students?
You sure can. They still have another year to go, but.
Yeah. Well, again, if one of the problems when we started this was we weren't sure how many students you'd be able to provide. If you do have students that are looking for a place, please let us know. Okay, this is like an experiment that is really taking off.
Tom?
Yes, sir.
I have a question for Casey and Angela. One of our mantras has been that we want every student in our system to be able to read on grade level by the time they finish their third grade. Some people have said this is pie in the sky, and maybe it is and maybe it isn't. But my question to you is, based on this preliminary data that you're developing, do you see that as a realistic goal? And if not, where would you kind of forecast we might be once this program is, fully operational?
I'll speak from a district purview first, and then Casey, I'll turn it over to you. I feel like if we've seen the remarkable results that we've seen given our situation in the pandemic, I think we have the potential to exceed. I know we want all, but I truly think if once we get this foundation sturdy and steady and we do it over time, I don't think that is too far out of the realm for us. I feel like looking at certain groups of data, I mean, I still have moments where I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. And that's why I think I'm so excited about middle of the year data. So the research shows, especially for K-1, 97% of kids can leave first grade with the foundational skills necessary for reading. And I really think that, if you're looking at, we know we have ranges of students. And so you have students who maybe have an intellectual disability, but I've also seen students with an intellectual disability be able to become functional enough readers that they're not, necessarily obtaining a college degree. However, they have the functional skills to fill out an application and perform a job. And I think that we have a range of needs of our students. And I think with the right kind of instruction, we can give all of our kids what they need to be successful. And it truly does, like Mr. Vukovic said, it's for all kids. So all of our students are a part of a lot of really rich conversation and read alouds that are a part of CKLA. And I've seen how teachers have differentiated for our students who might be in the life skills program or learning support program and within the classroom and the work that they're producing. And it's so cool to see these dots connect. So I really feel like as we get steady on our feet and have a chance to really see this come to fruition, I don't think it's so far-fetched. And I'm really excited to see where our kids go.
And I can only speak to the phonological awareness data, but what I can tell you is there is an overwhelming amount of research that tells us that phonological awareness skills are very crucial and a huge predictor of future reading success. So the fact that the district is identifying these needs early in all of their students and doing something about that is absolutely heading in the right direction to teach these kids how to read by third grade.
Well, I am very cautiously optimistic that we can achieve that goal, Walter.
Well, I was following a lot of that, and I, was really fascinated by your pyramid, and I think it kind of really graphically sort of illustrates something that I've more or less been a proponent of, very, very easily. But I also think that it's, for a lot of people that don't follow this quite as closely as the board does, or as some of the other professionals do, simple goals like having everybody on grade level by the end of third grade or what have you, for the common person, the regular taxpayer, the regular resident of the district, are goals that they can kind of see and understand. And if we're headed that direction, then that can be exciting for them as well.
And whenever, right before Christmas break, the president of the Reading League had reached out to me to find out more about the work that we're doing and how we're taking the research, like taking the evidence to the ground in practice, because so many people know the practice, but how do you take it from that to really systemic change? And so she and I had a great conversation that she's very just interested in knowing how we've done it. And we've talked a lot about eating the elephant with one bite at a time. And that's something that I've had to do a lot just this year. What's our focus? And even still, it's remarkable to me that it's only been a little over a year's time that I've been working on this initiative and just seeing how much we've accomplished and how much more we still have to accomplish. But so there's a lot of interest around it. And I think that there's a lot of other places that will hopefully be headed in the same direction, because it really is providing equitable opportunities for kids. And when I go into those classrooms, and like with CKLA, for example, I see kids hanging on their teachers' words. Like, they can't wait to get more information about it. And there's a young lady, she had to write about if she was a Greek god or goddess, what would she be? And she wrote about being the Greek goddess of learning, because she loves writing and she loves books. And she talked about her weapon would have been a pen, and her gift would be to like impart knowledge. And I mean, it was just, I was like, I feel like we're soul sisters. That's kind of mine. But it's just so neat to see how these kids have common language and they all can talk about it. So it doesn't separate the haves from the have-nots. Everyone has something that they can contribute. So if I don't have an experience going to the beach, I don't have to withdraw from that conversation because I've been taught about the beach, or I've been taught about human body systems. And I mean, my 5-year-old still talks about how many taste buds she has and how they change. And so I just see this from a parent perspective, but also just from when I walk into the classroom, there really is not a separation. And when you can hear a pin drop in a first grade classroom, it's just truly a remarkable thing. So I thank the board tremendously for the support, and Mr. Vukovic and Mr. Heinrich and Mr. Zahorchak.
You realize, Angela, that from a board member's perspective, this is a little bit of a shell game, because once you get all of the third graders reading on grade level, at the end of the third grade, it's going to be sixth grade next.
Hey, I'll take the challenge. I look forward to it, and I think we're already starting to see that in our view. And so that's the other part. We're going to work with our 4th and 5th grade teachers to teach them about MTSS, but also then teach them the data teaming process and how we'll use that at our grade level meetings. So we're scooping them in to get ready for it. And then Dr. Minnick and Mr. Edmondson better watch out, because then we're coming there next. So we're just going to keep on going.
Thank you very much for the great work you guys are all doing.
Thank you. And we will hopefully have an update with middle of the year data come February.
I want to ask Casey, how many students are you currently supplying the district?
Currently 4.
And how many do you have in your back pocket that are looking for a home?
We could provide up to 6 more.
That's a lot.
Tom, you're going to have to run that one by Julia.
Well,
Got that right.
My suspicion is Casey's having trouble placing students because of the pandemic, and if we could marry her and double the outcome here, what a great buy this would be. So, yeah, I would plan on running it by Julia, but when we started this, we weren't sure you had 4, so you have 10 now. Imagine what that could do in the district.
Yes, the pandemic has certainly limited what we have been able to do with our students. So most of them are participating in telehealth right now. So, it's certainly a positive experience, but it's not the same as being face-to-face.
What kind of cost would that be, Mike?
We can look at the partnership and talk to Casey and bring that back. It's a minute cost for the return on investment we're getting, not only academically, but the number of bodies in there helping our kids. And during a middle pandemic, it's priceless what we're doing. So the costs are relatively small. What I could do is work with Casey and Ange and Mr. Heinrich, and we can bring that back to the next committee meeting. But it's something, when you talk about, look, I think the one thing the pandemic's going to do is blow up the achievement gap, right? And if we're going to really be honest about equity, then we have to close the opportunity gaps. If you want to close the achievement gap, quit talking about achievement gap and start looking at opportunity gaps. What Casey's program does is helps us eliminate barriers, and provide meaningful opportunities for kids to get caught up and get on a reading level. So that's exactly what it does. And I think the support's going to be needed in multiple grades as we move forward as well.
Well, when you say move forward, Mike, I mean, I'm talking about this coming semester. I'm talking about 2 weeks in January. If those kids are available and Casey has the time, my goodness, why don't we try to employ them?
Let us do this.
I'm sure we got kids that could use the help.
Yeah. No, let us do this. Let us get offline with Casey, talk to her tomorrow, and we have a policy and personnel committee as long as Ms. Uta's okay with it, I can bring it back next Monday in front before the board meeting, if that's okay with everyone.
That's okay with
It's
me.
okay with me.
Uta?
I think that makes sense.
Okay, let's see what we can do. Well,
May I ask a question for Dr. Angela?
You've already asked too many questions.
No, I just have one more question. I know I asked a lot. This is great
Go
stuff.
ahead, Julia. Ask a question.
I am curious when, Dr. Angela, we might get a report on the dyslexia pilot.
Oh, yeah. So I can circle back to our reading specialist to find out about the groups that they're working with. So I was able to be trained in the intervention as well, and I can share an experience that I've had working with a student, and it's remarkable what this young person has been able to do in a very short time. So I'm really excited to see, I'm curious to see how it's going for 5- and 6-year-olds, because I know kindergarten was the primary focus of the pilot. But with the pandemic, that changes things a little bit. So there's a lot of moving parts and pieces, but it's all multisensory and Orton Gillingham based. So I can definitely also get you an update from them.
Great.
Thank you. Great work.
This is really
So I
exciting.
have another question.
The Tamara? I just got
I'm
into
sorry.
questions.
Angie, so so what are we doing right now for interventions for the 4th and 5th graders? Are they just, or do they just have the regular win time in their classrooms?
Right. So right now for the 4th and 5th grade students, they do still have win time built in, and I know that they've been using Success Maker a bit. However, I've had some teachers reach out to say, you know, hey, I'm kind of unsure if this is enough. And so I've been kind of scheduling some coaching meetings with teachers who've asked for more specific help for their students. The data are very glaring that phonics is where we need to be. So I'm really feeling like once we get that 95% group training, that not only will, like, for example, the multi-syllable routines become a part of the everyday, but then it will be a natural segue into intervention time. Because it can be utilized for both, which I think will be really beneficial. So I really wish that we didn't have the pandemic. I think we all do, because having a reading specialist at that level, as well as the graduate assistants as we had originally designed, would have been a beautiful thing. So I really look forward to us being able to get to that capacity. In the meantime, we've been really just trying to help and support and really work on that tier 1 piece, which CKLA, the assumption is that by 4th grade, they've mastered all the foundational skills. So there are still within CKLA remediation assessments and guides to help look at what students need. But that's an area that we need to get ourselves to be more specific and thoughtful of what specific interventions are being provided. But I think 95% group is a good place to start.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and one last thing on that too, the 4th and 5th grade students, so you'll see that as kids progress, takes a lot more time, and it's time intensive to close that gap for the students, which I still think we can do, but I think this also streamlines the need for what we do for those kids who are in 4th and 5th now, who will be 5th and 6th next year as they go to the junior high, and how we can have continuity, because the phonics need isn't going to go away, you know, in 6 months of instruction. It's going to have some continuation. And so that's where I think we're trying to be thinking forward about what those needs will be for those students, because there's definite needs. I wish I could clone myself like a million times over and just do intervention for all of them. So it's definitely tough, but I feel like they've been making the most of what they can with what they have. And I just think we need to keep giving them more and supporting them more. So.
Mike, I think we can wrap this up. Is there any other comments, questions? Okay, very good. Let's move on then to reopening.
Yes, sir. I want to talk about item number 3. On that item number 3, I think as a committee, as a board, we need to start having a discussion about reopening, a total reopening during the 2021 school year, during the 2nd semester. Originally, when we first met, we looked at 2nd semester opening up. I got to be honest with you, just my opinion, I think that's too soon, right? I think we have to see what the wave after the holiday break comes and hits us with and see what that looks like. But we don't have to make a decision tonight. What I really want to do is get some input from the committee about what your thoughts are as far as reopening, because I think we do have an obligation to communicate with our secondary families about, hey, we're staying the course in hybrid, or no, we're doing a full reopening, and just so they're aware of what we're looking at for the short term. And then long term, we can maybe look at setting some additional milestones, whether it's February 15th, March, or later. I just think we need to put that on our radar as far as a group, what your comfort level is. And a couple of things I want to talk about in general before we really get into deep, rich discussion. Number one, we have an issue in third grade. When you look at the 6 feet social distancing, we had some kids enroll over the break. That now puts us at our max. So I want to talk about that in a minute. I also want to talk about vaccine distribution, what that looks like. Myself, Justin, and Mr. Heinrich drove to Rite Aid and to CVS to ask them what their plans were for vaccine distribution, and there's none at this current time. I talked to the Department of the Emergency Management System. They're waiting for information from the Department of Health as well, but I did include a link for Department of Health that shows how many people in Indiana County have been vaccinated. Again, I don't know if these are all medical, first responders, and/or long-term care facilities. I'm not sure about what makes up the group, but that is a link that I wanted to share with the board as we talk about vaccine distribution and what that looks like. When we talked to the individual at Rite Aid, she informed us that by next month, they'll have additional information for us and some more steps. Don't know what that means in its entirety, but we do have that. And then lastly, there's some substitute information. A board member sent me some information about, hey, are we okay looking at the number of, bus drivers being off sick or people being quarantined? Where are we at? What do we look like? So I put all that information together for you to look at. Now, I would like to start with third grade because I think this is the one that has a short-term ramification, because we do have a child who enrolled over break and who's now on online learning because, with us trying to maintain 6 feet social distancing, we just couldn't accommodate them. And I felt comfortable that better talking to the committee about your thoughts on that. And I think we have a couple options. Option number one, remember, we are under no obligation to do 6 feet social distancing. It's a decision that we're trying to do, and we're trying to adhere to the best of our ability. So with that said, we could say, okay, as kids enroll, we have a lot of room in a lot of areas except for third grade. We could do the best of our ability in social distancing, meaning one class may not be 6 feet social distancing, but as long as they're wearing masks and following other protocols, that's something you can decide if you're comfortable with. Two, you can hire another temporary teacher. Or three, what you could look at doing is collapsing a 5th grade class because we have smaller class sizes, moving at third. The only thing I would caution you with, this board has been very considerate of families and shifting kids around. I don't know if I find value in collapsing a 5th grade class just to move 20 third graders or another 15 third graders to create additional class. So whatever we do here, there's going to be an impact and a pretty big decision. But I think first and foremost, what does the law say? What does the science say? We're under no obligation to do 6 feet social distancing. We've done that to the best of our ability because we think it's important. However, you can't say, look, let's maintain it where we can. If we have one class in less than 6 feet, you can do that. You could hire another temp sub, or you can relocate another individual to that classroom, or collapse a 5th grade classroom. My only concern with that is if you collapse a classroom, hire someone else, in order to make that investment on the board worthwhile, you're going to take another 9, 10, 11 kids out of other existing third grade classrooms to put them in a new third grade classroom. And with the amount of change involved in that, you have to ask yourself, is that a worthwhile commitment? And that's the discussion I really need, because at Kelly's building is where the new enrollee is. And she reached out to me over Christmas. She's been on top of this from day one. And I thought, let's hold off till tonight. Let's have a discussion about that. Then we could talk about the reopening, enrollment, vaccine distribution, and substitute information. But for now, the short term, I kind of need some direction on what the board's comfort level is with regards to what do we want to do with the third grade level.
Mike, this is Ida. My first question is there room in a third grade classroom in a different building?
No, great question, Ms. Lauer. We are maxed at all third grade levels across the district. So all third grade levels are completely maxed out with regards to 6 feet social distancing.
I think part of our success in being able to offer the hybrid model is our 6 feet social distancing. And I think if we look at changing that, I think we're going to be asking for a lot of change for a lot of people. And I'm not sure that that's the safest thing. I mean, that's the same parameter we're using that we've used all along for any of our extracurriculars, any of our athletic events, spectators, all of that. I just don't see that that's a wise move to change that.
Yep, I think you bring up a valid point. You really do.
Cinda, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I totally agree with Uta that, you know, we've started with safety and 6 feet. We really need to try to stick with it. I'm wondering, well, first of all, I'm certain that if we say no, we're going to go less than 6 feet, you're probably going to have parents who are going to pull their kids out and go full remote so that they can, you know, keep their kids safe. So that might take care of that space issue. But what about, is there a possibility of putting it out there to the parents that, you know, we've got this situation? Is there anybody that is able to or would be willing to go fully remote so that we can free up a space in the classroom?
Yeah, Ms. Cindy, we can definitely do that. We can definitely survey the families. Yeah, again, this is day one of a return. We can definitely do that and see if there's any other interest. Most certainly. The only word of caution there is we're starting to reach our max on synchronous and asynchronous families, but you know, we can definitely look into that. And you know, again, we didn't make a decision because we wanted to talk tonight, but we could definitely survey and see what that level of comfort is out there for families.
Mike,
and again, you knew to make up great points. You know, the only reason I'm saying even entertain it is because at least we got through January. But this is supposed to be the worst month, and that's why we don't want to totally fully reopen. But no, they're all important points.
Mike, when you're talking about going to less than 6 feet, is it 5 feet or is it 3 feet? Do you have any idea?
I don't. Mr. Bandy, do you want to speak to that? It's in your building. What do you think it would be as far as the spacing?
Gosh, this is not my strength. I would say we would probably have to go to, if I'm guessing, I mean, we are to the sides and to the back. I'm guessing we'd have to go to 3 feet. That's my guess. I can go measure. I'm here. I can go measure right now if you want me to.
The 3 feet sounds pretty radical. I mean, we're talking about adding one desk to a classroom, or 3 desks to a classroom.
I can go measure.
Yeah, so if I can just interject real quick, what we're going to need to do is to gain an extra row at some point. So if you have 6 feet in between your desks, you're going to have to shuffle them close enough together so you can get another row in to get that extra student in. Because right now they're kind of checkerboarded, and I don't know if that's the right word, but they're in rows, and those are 6 feet in every direction. So you're going to have to either crunch them one way or the other to get the extra desk in.
How many rows do you have in the classroom?
At East Pike, I've got 19 kids in my 3rd grade room, so that's roughly four rows of 5 kids.
Is that the same?
5 rows of 4 kids, whichever way you look at that.
So it's 4 kids in a row, and there's 5 rows of nose to tail.
I'm sorry. What did the end of what you said, Tom?
Is it 5 rows wide or is it 4 rows wide?
That depends on the room and the teacher desk. The teacher desk is what takes up one student desk at East Pike. So
we put the teacher desk in the hallway. We could put one more student in.
That would work at Ben Franklin. East Pike has this permanent desk. You'd have to put the desk on top of the teacher's desk.
It also depends on the door placement of the classroom, which is kind of silly, but.
Kelly, if we bought another teacher, do you have a room that's open that you could put another classroom in?
I do not have any more classrooms available.
The availability, Mr. Harley, would be at East Pike. So that means we'd have to look at making some different arrangements and moving kids.
Tom.
Sure, Walter.
This is Walter. My question to both Kelly and Dawn, if you're basically sitting on a 4x5 grid, and if you moved, the desks 1 foot, each of them up, and close that gap to 5 feet, I would kind of challenge whether you were actually at the 3 feet level, Kelly, that you were, and I know you were just.
Oh, no.
Okay, but I'm thinking that, you know, you'd have a net square footage instead of 36 feet, that it would be in that 25 to 30 feet for the members in that particular classroom. You know, by just moving everybody a foot closer one way or the other.
Like I said, I'm here. I'm happy to go measure now.
Mike, do you remember what the initial recommendation was from PD? I just know that when we went to 6 feet, that was kind of the deal breaker. That really changed the amount of students we could put in a room significantly. I just don't remember the number before that.
Yeah, no, it changed and fluctuated.
Yeah, the original number we looked at was 3 feet, Mike.
Yeah, World Health Organization said 3 feet, CDC said 6 feet. PD says do it to the best of your ability where you can. There's no requirement. It was just the best practice that we adopted locally and we tried to adhere to the best of our ability. And for a long time, we did well in a majority of our classes. This is just, it's a rare, unique issue that, you know, we got to this point, especially in January with the new enrollee. And here's the tough part, Mr. Hurley. If that was my child, I want my kid in school. So I think the decision we should make is what we want for our own child. And this is where it gets convoluted and tough. And that's, we're trying to present you options. And I think what we're going to do no matter what is could possibly upset some people, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a family or multiple families of shifting classrooms. But, you know, there would have to be a shift because it wouldn't make
Mike, what I would suggest we do on this is, I know Kelly's offered to go measure her room right now, but I would suggest that maybe we, you know, send Rob down or Greg down and see what how that might actually look like. And if we're going to ask the board to modify what that social distancing might look like, rather than speculate, we need to kind of have maybe a more accurate picture. And again, maybe we could bring that back to Uta's committee or buildings and grounds the following week. But that would be my suggestion, is to actually sit down, think it through, get a dot grid out and see how it would actually work out for everybody.
Are you saying you don't trust me, Mr. Schroth?
Not at all, Kelly, but your first wag, I the accuracy of that one.
Miss Uta, I think you were going to say something, Miss Uta?
Yeah, so I have a couple of questions. I think if I remember correctly, we surveyed families about returning to school and would their kid go back if we had 6 feet social distancing, and got answers to that. I think we need to keep that in mind. I am not in favor of adding a teacher and shuffling around, whether it's a 5th grade class and a 3rd grade class, and impacting all these students at a time when they already are, you know, I mean, we still are in the middle of a pandemic. So I think the least amount of change that we can do, the better. If you want to, you know, whatever it ends up being, change the distancing in a classroom to meet, to be able to accommodate the 1 student or 2 students or however many students we need to add. And I think, you know, you pick a class, you say this is what it is, you inform the parents, and you see what the fallout is. We're not going to make everybody happy, but I do want to caution us that if we decide to make this change, it could have implications for other classrooms all the way across the district. And I think then it will really impact our ability to continue to stay open. You know, you said you haven't been able to, that all of our positive cases haven't, you know, have been as a result of either community spread or things that have happened outside of the school. I'm really concerned that once we open up the gates and say 6 feet isn't 6 feet anymore across the board, we're just asking for problems.
Yeah, I think there's no easy answer. I think the one thing we'll do is look into it, double check the room size. And the one thing I would do maybe then is, before we decide anything, is give this information to board, but we could also write a letter to families explaining, look, in third grade, we reached our max. We would have one class not meeting social distancing guidelines. Would this impact your decision to remain in school or change? But you're right. It's a tough decision either way. And I was hoping that we would get through the year with any new enrollments that put us in a position. But, you know, I'd be remiss if I didn't at least tell you about this or bring it to your attention, you know, and it's tough. And we are limited in options. None of them are good either.
Well, no, it's Mike, they're all good. You know, we have kids that want to be in school. We have parents that want to be here. We have teachers that want to show up. You know, this is a small dilemma. Kelly, the third grade classrooms, are you using your biggest classrooms for them? You have some classrooms that are larger and some that are smaller.
The third grade is in my last hallway, and those classrooms are slightly larger, and that was just by chance. The kindergarten classrooms that appear to be bigger in the main hallway, because of the build-ins, they can actually not accommodate as many desks as we were hoping. So yes, to answer your question.
Okay, so we don't have any opportunity of shuffling classrooms around to squeeze in one more desk.
And we also decluttered to the best of our ability, from my understanding, as far as the classroom. So, yeah, we got till January. And we talked about this at previous committee meetings, and we thought, hey, when it comes, we'll address it. And
here it is.
Over Christmas break. Mike,
can you take a look at this in more detail at Ben Franklin? And I see we have UTA's committee on next Monday and Buildings and Grounds the following. Can you see if there are any solutions? I'd like to know, if we have to modify, what that modification would be, or if there's a solution when you look at it in more detail, or have you already done that?
No, we didn't do anything. We wanted to talk tonight and see where everyone's comfort level was and what direction you wanted to go. But I think what we'll do is attack this first thing tomorrow and start working on, get something out to the board. Mr. Harley, Ms. Leeper has a hand on. I don't want to ignore her. Do you mind if we call on her, sir?
Yes, please, Tamara.
Thanks. A lot of what I was going to say, Uta already said, but I also worry about making this change, setting precedents for the many, many students at the high school that want to come back. If we're going to allow social distancing less than 6 feet in elementary, I think that the upper grades have reason to ask us to violate that policy or that standard there as well. And I do believe that there are levels of protection. And just with, cars have seatbelts and airbags and driver safety courses and everything like that to keep drivers safe on the road. And I believe that we have levels of protection, and we have masking, cleaning, and distancing. And again, I feel that our distancing has played a role in our ability to remain open thus far. So I too hesitate to bend that rule. I am compassionate for the family and the child who wants to attend school, because I know that's important. But I think that one decision may have a domino effect on other decisions that we have to face if we decide to do that.
I certainly agree that we need to be cautious about making any changes. I think we can acknowledge that the COVID risk at the elementary is less than at the senior high. I think that's been proven, at least that's what I heard last. But all I'm asking the administration to do is to come back with a dimension, as opposed to just getting rid of the 6-foot rule. Come back with, it's going to be 4 feet or it's going to be 5 feet in one classroom, and then make a decision based on that either next week or the week following. I doubt, Mike, this is our last third grader that wants to come back.
This is a new enrollee. This is not someone that's come back, so that presents a whole nother issue.
Oh my, yeah.
Itself.
Yeah.
And which leads to the bigger conversation. We need to kind of come up with internally what we think is a good date. Again, I think it's too soon, too early to fully reopen the secondary in January. I think we need to wait and see what the the spike that they're all predicting will be like. But I think we do need to let families know about another milestone date we want to revisit this topic, because really at the junior high and high school, and I don't want to speak for them, they'll be ready to go once we make a decision about full reopening. But at this point, I just don't think we can do anything in January. But we need to keep this in the back of our mind, because I think it's only going to continue to come up. And Mr. Clark has a question.
Your recommendation is to look at the February 15th date if the data will allow to be the earliest we go.
I think what we do is we tell families the truth. Look, we're not going to fully reopen in January like we thought we would. Why? Because the numbers are still continuing to rise. We're in the worst time in the history of the pandemic, and I think it'd be reckless to open fully. Number two, we want to set a new target date, possibly of February 15th, and see where we're at. But there's a lot of multiple factors there. I want to know what the immunization rate looks like, the vaccine, where we're at, the case counts, the percent positivity. We got to look at a lot of things before we make a decision. But I think we need to at least let families know we're looking at it and we're thinking about it, and we're not just sitting back doing nothing. But we have to be cautious, like we have been all along, and it's been proven to be pretty impactful what we've done. But it's just my point tonight, and I hate to drop all these bombs on us, is at least to start thinking about it, sir.
Yeah. I'm encouraged that we can actually start thinking about it. Uta, you have something to say?
I do. I think there are other things that we haven't talked about that need to play part of this. The lack of availability of testing in the area is horrendous. Currently, you can only get a test if you have a prescription from a doctor, and even then, testing seems to be limited and have been greatly reduced from what the availability was earlier. And we don't seem to have a plan to get accurate information out to the community in a way that can be consumed by everybody in the county. The internet isn't doing it, because there are a lot of people who don't have access to it.
When you say we don't have a plan, you're talking about the county itself, or the?
I'm talking about this COVID task force in the county.
Okay.
We also don't know when vaccines are going to be available for even our school nurses. And so I think while it makes sense to say we're going to revisit in February, I'm not sure we're in a position to do anything more than say we're going to revisit it, because there's a whole lot of information that we just don't have.
Yes,
and it's not that we don't have it; it just is. It doesn't exist. It's not out there.
Yeah, and to Ms. Lauer's point, it's not like we're not seeking it. We went to CVS and we went to Rite Aid today, and I can't advise you to open up fully right now, because I don't have enough information myself. So I think we have to let parents know we're thinking about it, we're talking about it, and we'll revisit. But at this point, I can't tell you when the vaccines will be available for staff right now.
Mike, at this point, they haven't been able to get the vaccines in any of the nursing homes in Indiana County.
I don't know, sir. I mean,
no, that's what I read.
Okay.
If they haven't done the nursing homes, they're not going to get to your nurses. They're not going to get to us for another month or two. So, but let's see what that's. I agree with Uta. I agree with Cinda. Hold the line here. Take a look at it. Revisit it at the next. In the middle of January to see where we are, and the earliest I think is the February 15th. But that's only a possibility.
Yeah, and I think we tell families the truth. It's an option, but it's not feasible at this time, and we're going to be concerned. We're going to monitor, and at least they know that we're trying. At least they know we're monitoring it. But we have to be honest, like we have been with our decision making. We've done a good job, and we're not going to abandon that. But we'll continue to monitor. I just, there's too many unknown variables for us to be able to solve this equation right now.
I think we're better off doing what we're doing today, getting the majority of our kids elementaries in school, dealing with the senior high as we are, than facing a 2-week shutdown.
Well, and remember, sir, special needs kids at risk are coming back up to 4 days a week, and those who want to come back 4 days a week, as long as we can fit them and adhere to the best of our ability social distancing, we've been doing that. So it's not like those who want to come back haven't had the opportunity. We just haven't made it, complete.
And to be clear, there isn't anybody on this call that doesn't want the kids back in school full time, exactly. and have the gyms full of have 850 people at a basketball game. But that's not the case that we have right now.
No, and I don't want to sound arrogant when I say this, but we've been blessed, man. The fact that we only shut down 7 days in the middle of the pandemic. I think it's pretty remarkable, you know, and we want to make sure we maintain the course, but I think we owe it to people to start thinking about it. So what I'll do is my office will start crafting a letter to families saying, hey, this is where we're at. This is our thinking. And then we'll revisit the third grade. Rob, Justin, and I will go over visit Kelly tomorrow and look at that and see what other options we are. And we'll be ready to bring that. We'll get you something this week. That way at policy and personnel, we can further discuss it. And then at the board meeting, if the board wants to take action, we'll at least have some options put together, if that's okay with that.
It'd be great to have a solution for this kid.
We're trying, sir. Yes, sir. We're trying.
I just want to let you all know, Bart had a great question in the chat about third graders and siblings, which I don't know that we actually discussed it, but it might be worth looking into.
Yes, we can definitely look into that. Kelly, if you don't mind making note of that. Oh,
Sorry, I just answered. We do have one set of twins, but it's not going to open up an additional space in the classroom because desks are over against the wall and shelves on one side. They're against the lockers on the other side, so it's not going to open up a space.
Kelly, if you could put the sibling desks next to each other, you might gain a little bit of space. Just something to think about.
Sure.
Can you
We'll
We
map
have
it out
all
tomorrow.
options, seriously.
There's a really good idea. We'll map it out tomorrow.
Yep. And again, our goal was not to create any, you know, disruption or consternation towards this. We just wanted to be open and honest where we're at and start planning about this because we're expecting questions to come down the road, but at least now we know how to get ahead of it. And we'll work on the third grade and give us till end of the day tomorrow or Wednesday, and we'll get something out to the board and we can act on it and discuss it on Monday.
Mike, you got 4 hours tonight. What the heck?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are we good? Can we move on?
Yeah, the only other thing is please look at the links. I provided them for you. It addresses some of your questions and or comments via email that we were discussing that I thought you could look at, right? So you can look at our historically what it looks like the past 4 years as far as new enrollment in the months of January through March. You can look at the vaccine distribution Department of Health link that tells you how many people in Indiana County have been vaccinated. And then, you know, you can look at the number of substitutes that we have compared to this year, last year. Our bus drivers, we have 3 substitutes. And then you'll see that 6% of our staff throughout the year thus far has had a presumed positive or tested positive. We see a much lower rate amongst kids, but we wanted to make sure you had that information because I think what will come to the head in the forefront, if the impact in January is bad as they say it's going to be, it could be the number of people who are quarantined, lack of subs, or the number of people who get tested positive, and we'll have to revisit that. But the good news is we have a chart that we're going to follow that we adhere to that will put us in a position that we can act sooner rather than later. And Mr. Harley, if it's okay with you, Ms. Leeper has a question. We'd like to address that.
Sure. Tamara?
So the percentage rate and the numbers on that form for that spreadsheet for the teachers that have tested positive, that is not currently positive. That's just over the course of the year.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh goodness. Okay, I thought that's how many we had out right now.
Oh no,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay.
And that number, ma'am, includes I believe, includes secretaries, paraprofessionals, maintenance workers, etc. It's all inclusive.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for the clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
Mike, you haven't had any problems covering faculty slots.
We've been close. I got to tell you, all the credit goes to the principals for working together and try to share substitutes and resources. There's been times where we had Jared Cronauer doing lunch duty, as far as, billing, bringing kids up. The principals have to do more. Everyone's pulling together. It's kind of like the bend but don't break defense. We have been bent. We haven't been broken yet. But we're going to take it day by day, sir. I know that sounds silly, but right now we're okay. But it can change tomorrow, sir.
Okay. No, it doesn't sound silly, Mike. It's we're doing all of us are doing the best we can, and I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have 10 classrooms across the district that didn't have a teacher in them today.
No, there's been tough days. There's no excusing that. But our teachers, our administrators have done an incredible job handling their building issues. And I don't want to sound melodramatic, but we're just going to live one day at a time, sir. We're going to take it one day at a time and do the best we can.
Okay, great. Can we move on, folks?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Tamara still has her hand up. Oh, she took her hand down. Okay, Mike, move on.
Just two quick updates. NAEP testing, the National Assessment for Educational Progress, that has been postponed this year. That's again a national norm that they used internationally to compare American education compared to our counterparts. That's been postponed. Keystone testing, as of now, the window it's still on. The window has been extended. I'm guessing with the new administration coming in January, those tests may be postponed this year as well as it was done last year. Who knows? But for right now, we did communicate to families that window has extended. Next on our list, sir, we want to talk about pathways to graduation and Keystone testing and graduation requirements. I'll turn it over to Mr. Heinrich and Mr. McElhaney. We just want to make sure the board's aware about what changes have occurred with the government, because one thing we did, we advocated, and some changes have taken effect through the state's advocacy as far as principals and central admin reaching out. So we just want to update the board where we are with our plans so they're aware. With that, Mr. Heinrich, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. McElhaney.
Yes, sir. Thank you. There were two significant laws that were passed recently that affect the graduation requirements for students. Mr. McElhaney and Mr. Johnson and their team at the high school worked very hard with the guidance counselors to map this out for our students. We gave you a little preview in the fall, but we wanted to update you on where we are with this situation moving forward. So, Mr. McElhaney, if you would, please.
Sure, Mr. Heinrich, thank you. And thank you, everybody, for the opportunity to go over this. As Mr. Vukovic had said, Mr. Heinrich, we dealt with a number of changes since this summer. Have to, say a word of appreciation to State Representative Struzzi. Mr. Heinrich and I went and visited him, and he was able to confer or convey our concerns to the State House Education Subcommittee. And we were able to discover that through the passage of this law that the Keystone and graduation requirements do not apply to the classes of 2021 or 2022. They apply starting with the class of 2023 as we know it. As Mr. Vukovic alluded, if the state receives a federal waiver, that may change that as well, but we are now gearing up and preparing. So what we did is we created an extensive information guide, whether it be by text or by chart, starting with the class of 2023, but it includes all the classes. So what we are looking at right now is making the Keystone exam available for the winter to those students who were in 9th grade last year in those eligible courses of only algebra and biology. This will provide our students an opportunity to maximize or optimize their chances for the graduation requirements. PD said that, and with a new law passed, that any students who were in those core courses last year and received a passing grade automatically receive a label or a score of proficient. And that works very well for Pathway 1. However, in Pathway 2, where there's the composite score, for those students to become eligible for that pathway, they need to take that exam so that they can optimize all of their chances to meet those graduation requirements. So we're putting that together. For first week in February will be for algebra. Second week will be for biology. There is not any literature because that would go back to the 9th grade, and literature does not occur for those students until they're in 10th grade. So those students will be class of 2022. Keystone exam graduation requirements and the graduation requirements do not apply to the classes of 2021 or 2022. Only begin with the classes of 2023 and after. We're putting the information in the newsletter. We're going to be getting the message out to the classes to be able to answer those questions, but we want to put our students in the best possible place with the information requirements as we know them now, to have them take that Keystone test so they can, in effect, be eligible for Pathway 2 if they do not score proficient on their exams, on the literature exam, in fact. So we are working and getting ready, developing our capacity to support our students so that they can, in fact, optimize any of those pathways. And last thing I want to make note is that PowerSchool, we're working with Wes Matthews, one of our IT guys, and developing PowerSchool has portal access for parents and students to be able to revise our graduation progress page so that it will include also progress for graduation requirements too. So that's kind of an update of where we are. Like I said, we are gearing up and getting ready to provide that opportunity to our students in February, first and second weeks of February.
Thank you, Mr. McElhaney. Mr. Harley, if there's no other questions, I'll defer to you. The principals are on the call. They're ready to report out on their building level updates. Or if you're saying, look, it's too late, Mr. Vukovic, we can read it on our own, that's fine too, but they are on a call and ready to brief you however you'd like to move forward, sir.
Yeah, we certainly can read it on our own, but I wouldn't mind hearing from them. We haven't heard from anybody, it seemed like, in a year. So if you want to jog through and summarize, that would be just perfect, Mike. I think it's worth the extra time.
Yeah, Mr. Springer, why don't you take a couple minutes to go ahead and summarize the things you're working on, and especially talk about some of the work you're doing with Dyslexia Pilot, as that was brought up by Madam Vice President, and stick to a couple minutes, and we'll move on to the next one on the list. Is that okay with you, Mr. Harlan? Okay, Mr. Springer, you're up, sir. What we'll do is we'll move the next one on the school, and we'll come back to Mr. Springer, as I think he's having some technical difficulties. Kelly, are you ready to go ahead and take a couple minutes and update some of the great work you're doing as far as parent involvement, data training, and some of the work you're doing with MTSS and literacy? I see Dawn's back. Why don't we go to Dawn? Go ahead, Mr. Springer. Randy, can you scroll back up to him, please? Ron, we want to keep, or Dawn, we want to keep it brief, so a couple minutes, please.
Sure, no problem. Just want to let everybody know that we began reading interventions after Thanksgiving break for our at-risk kiddos. That does include the Apple OG interventions, which is part of the Dyslexia Pilot. And we are currently servicing about 14 kindergarten and first graders with that Apple intervention that's part of the Dyslexia Pilot. So we're seeing around 60 students, and that number has changed as of today. So we are able to get closer to 80 students that are receiving interventions, and those will happen whether we are in person or whether we are remote. We have a schedule, and we've provided those interventions both ways, just due to the shutdown before Thanksgiving at East Pike. And then as far as face-to-face, like we would always do. And I'll also just kind of pair up with Kelly. Our teachers have gone through that APTT initial training. I have one teacher in each grade level part of that project, including the guidance counselor. Thank you, Mr. Vukovic.
No, thank you, Mr. Springer. Mr. Harley, any questions for Mr. Springer before we move on to Ben Franklin?
Any questions? Go ahead.
Okay. I think Ms. Urbani will be joining us in 1 minute.
She's measuring desks, Mike.
Yes, she is, sir. Can we move on to Mr. McElhaney real quick to give an overview before we go back to Kelly?
Yeah, I go very quickly here. Senior High School, highlighting one of our projects. One of our major initiatives is career readiness, but also integrating that with social and emotional learning, PBIS, SMART goals, looking for ways to make this a meaningful opportunity to contribute and complement our graduation guidelines. I'm very proud of the work of Dr. Pam Emery of PDE, Mr. Hilliard, Indiana County Chamber of Commerce, as well as our teacher team here, and as well as our parent advocate, Dr. Krasis. I put a link on here so that everybody can see how this program is developing. Our goal is to make this available for graduation requirements beginning with the class of 2025 with our freshman class. We have expanded the Indiana County Ready, working with Mr. Hilliard with that, but also including a component of community service, because we believe that's a very important part, a very important opportunity for our students. So it is there for everybody's review, and that is something that is an ongoing working document and draft that we have. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McElhaney. Mr. Urbani?
Sorry, I had to step away for a moment. Just to give you a little bit of an update as to what's going on at Ben Franklin. Reading interventions for students who scored below benchmark and Acadiance reading began after Thanksgiving. And the interventions for students in grades K through 2 were actually being delivered by our interns. They're doing a wonderful job. We have 2 interns, and then we are sharing one with Horace Mann. So we have her for the afternoon as well. And so they've been pulling our students and working with them in small groups. Data team meetings for every grade level have taken place. They were extremely productive, and I'm really proud of my staff and how well we did talking about our data. They were led by our MTSS facilitators, Shelly and Ange, and I did assist with that as well. It was determined that we really do need to continue focusing on our Tier 1 efforts, and each grade level created goals and discussed about 2 to 3 classroom interventions in the areas, mostly phonological awareness and also phonics. Another great thing that happened to Ben Franklin is that Megan Valleys, who was over at Horace Mann and Eisenhower, is making a comeback. So she's back at Ben Franklin to also offer some assistance. She's going to focus primarily on 3rd grade to help out with some of their phonics goals that we have created for them. Goodness. As indicated by the information shared by Dr. Kelburn, the partnership with IUP is just so successful. We're seeing a lot of growth, and it's just been so impactful. Her students have done a phenomenal job, and we really hope that we are able to grow that partnership as well. And I'm just very grateful for the opportunity for our students to be able to work with them. And we had our first APTT training with the West Ed, and we all participated in that on our remote learning snow day. I do have 4 classroom teachers that are going to partner and work closely with their families. Pre-K teacher, Danielle Lear, kindergarten teacher, Jenna Girallo, and 2 2nd grade teachers, Robin Swanger and Zoe Gailey. Our school counselor, Steph Brillhart, also attended, and she will assist in any way that she can. And we're really excited, like I said, to work with our families and strengthen our homeschool connection.
All right, thanks, Mr. Banning. Randy, you want to slide down a little bit, please? Okay, I think Eisenhower's next. Miss Erin?
Hi, everyone. We are doing really good work at Eisenhower as well. We're excited about the 95% intervention training coming up. We are partnering with Horace Mann, as we have been all along, to have our first data team meeting trainings on Friday. So we're going to train both schools together so the 4-5s have similar goals. They work together with these goals, and then after they have the basic training together, we can have our individual data team meetings in the buildings. But we want to make sure everybody's working from the same foundation with the same kind of goals in mind, and that we're moving forward since this is new to the 4-5s. We are also, as Mr. Springer and Mrs. Urbani have echoed, and Mr. McElhaney, we are working with the APTT program. We are looking forward to increasing our communication with families, and our PBIS program is still going strong in spite of the pandemic. We found different ways for the students to cash in their Dwight dollars so that they can continue to make that program strong.
Thanks, Erin. I think Miss Krista, you're up.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you again. Just to piggyback on what Erin is sharing, we just work really hard to stay as consistent as possible and to provide all of our students with opportunities. So the only other thing I'd love to add is how excited I am about the academic parent-teacher teams that are coming in. I think there is no greater work we can do than to involve our families more richly, deeply, and to actually have a collaborative atmosphere with them. I think about myself on the sidelines of like a game my kid is playing in, and I feel really invested when I can watch and see, okay, what has this practice done for him? Is he executing in the game? And now we're giving parents a chance to be able to actually see inside of our schools even more clearly. And I think it's still a mystery to a degree. So I am really excited about that partnership. And we're just opening up more opportunities to teach parents about, like we sent out a Power School tutorial today from Horace Mann, just to give them like all of the things that seem like it should be common, but isn't so common all the time. So That's number one. I think if we can increase those partnerships, we can increase the progress of our students.
Nice work, Krista, on the video I saw. Ladies and gentlemen, if you can check it out on social media, it's just all about trying to connect, eliminate barriers, provide access to meaningful information, and her and her team did an incredible job. So I'd encourage you to look at that. And last but not least, we have the middle school. There's some great things going on down there at Dr. Minnick, and I'll defer to him, sir.
Hey, thanks, Mike, and good evening, everybody. Not to belabor any of the points, we're doing a lot of similar work as the other schools are doing. Like Eisenhower and Horace Mann, we had our APTT training recently as well. Our core team has been busy talking about how to better engage our parents and utilize all the stakeholders in our community so that we have more flow of communication and certainly create a more informed community when it comes to the initiatives that we're doing. Our PBIS core team, speaking of those initiatives, has been working throughout the pandemic, trying to initiate just an awareness within our students without doing a traditional kickoff like the other schools have had when everybody is in session. So we've been kind of soft rolling out the concept of PBIS with the junior high. Some of our kids are familiar with PBIS, our sixth graders. But as we're planning a rollout and the inevitable return to school, we've been working on our acknowledgement system and partnering with local businesses, trying to create acknowledgments that those junior high students are excited about. Free pizzas, coupons to Sheets, things of that nature have gone over really well. They've been very popular. Another bit of work that we've been focusing on is our data team. We have representation across all the core subject areas. Our departments are identifying measurable goals, utilizing assessments that are within our control, local assessment measures, and using those to monitor our progress. And we're tackling goals that are aligned with the standards and traditionally ones that are, for one reason or another, areas that have been trouble spots for our junior high students. So we're working at both the community and the academic aspects, despite the uneven access to kids with the pandemic and not having everybody in our school the way we traditionally have. But I feel like we're making progress with those and really setting the table for a strong return once everybody is back in session. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Dr. Minnick. Mr. Harley, I'll turn over any questions and comments from the board. The only thing I'll reiterate or call out is you'll notice some consistency across the district as far as our programming efforts and our areas of focus: family communication, MTSS, literacy, and PBS and social emotional learning. You'll see that happening across the spectrum, and I'm incredibly proud of all the work that the principals are doing. We got a great group, and I hope you're seeing that alignment across the district.
Any comments from the board, from the committee? Mike, I would like to back up just a moment to the literacy newsletter and congratulate those responsible for producing that piece of work. I've shared it a dozen times now, and every time I look at it, it becomes clearer what we're trying to do and what we're beginning to accomplish. So congratulations to the people who put that together. Boy, I wouldn't let that thing drop off the website. I wish people would, our parents, and would read, or actually take some time and read that thing. Tamara, you have something to say?
I just want to piggyback on what you're saying. Congratulations on being recognized at the state level for that newsletter too. So that's very exciting.
Yeah, all the credit goes to Dr. McMasters, Miss Morelli, and Shelley Wright, and with Mr. Zahorchek and Mr. Heinrich helping them. But it was really, we sat down as a group. We said, look, we think we need to over-communicate to families what we're trying to do here, so they have an understanding the why behind it. And it really took off greater than we can ever expect as far as building understanding capacity. And all the credit goes to them.
Mike, I'd also like to encourage Wade and Greg to communicate about as sports open up, what's going on there, and make sure that that line of communication stays open, because that's going to change practically Wade game to game. Let's make sure we get that information out there.
Yes, sir. I think Mr. Heinrich has something ready to go, but we'll make sure it gets out there.
Well, and just, especially about the mask and the attendance and games being canceled and stuff like that. It's going to be an interesting winter season.
Yes, sir.
Do you have anything else?
No, sir. That's all we have.
Okay, Mike, it's only been 2.5 hours. You probably have another couple hours. You could get some of these things accomplished tonight.
We're going to measure Ben Franklin.
For God's sake, more than a 6-inch rule. Let's shut this down.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Thanks for coming.
Good night.
Good night.